Hey everyone, it's Dr. Palmer. Welcome to week 3 of English 220. This week we are diving into phonology. So phonetics is what we talked about last week. And remember that phonetics is how we can use the IPA alphabet or different spellings, phonetic spellings, to describe how words and sounds are pronounced. So phonology is more about categorizing, how we categorize those sounds in our minds. So in chapter 4, you're going to read about phonology, and you're going to think about how we categorize things in our minds. In the discussion for this week, you're going to look at how this plays out when we're listening to music. There's just kind of a funny video to watch where someone is showing you how words can sound different, and our mind puts them, if we hear the sounds incorrectly, we misinterpret what's being said. So that's kind of a fun video to watch in discussion. And then you're going to practice looking at how we can even identify whether how we categorize sounds even in languages that we don't know. Okay, so what I want to do real quick is walk you through a little bit of an example of how to do the exercise this week so that you don't get too freaked out about it. Because I know this is all different and new. Just remember that if you try the exercise, you're going to get all the points. So it doesn't matter if you get it exactly right or not. I just want you to try. We're going to try to remove the stress and just try new things. And it's kind of fun to be able to examine some different language. And I'm going to show you how you can use some tools that we learned about last week that can kind of make this week's work a little bit more fun as well. All right, so here we are in week 3. And so here's that first discussion. I mean, you might already be able to see that it's going to be an interesting discussion, but what we're looking at in the exercise this week is some Maasai words. And you will see these words or a different set of words in your textbook as well. So what we're trying to do is figure out what the relationship or the patterns of a language are. So we're going to look at how two different sounds, are they contrastive sounds? So that means if we use them, if they're the only thing that's different in a word. So let me just pull up here. Here's our chapter. So here's a minimal pair, fan and van. They're identical in every way except for the first segment of the word, so the F and the V. And so those two sounds are contrastive because changing them in the word changes the meaning of the word. Okay, so when we're looking at these Maasai words here in the exercise, what we're looking for is two words that are exactly the same, except for the two sounds here that we're looking for. In this case, it's the s and the sh. So how do I know it's and sh? So here's something that's kind of fun to do. You can take these words or these sounds, and I'm going to go ahead and go to that IPA reader site that we learned about last week, and I can paste those in.
Sanj.
So did you hear that? This and the sh. So I can also take this out. Okay, and then if I put the other one in, did you see the difference? It's like a s and then a sh. Okay, so those are the differences in the sounds that you're looking at. And so maybe it helps to hear those sounds or not, but you want to find two words that are exactly the same, and there's only one set of words that are exactly the same. And if you can find those, that means that they're phonemes because it's a minimal pair. Okay? If you try one, if you're looking for a sound, so these sounds, this is t, d, and th. Okay, so these are different sounds. And so you're going to look at, in this language, are these sounds that are interchangeable? In other words, do they change the meaning if you pronounce the word with a t instead of a d? Does it change the meaning of the word or not? So if you can find a minimal pair, if you can find a place where there's a word, two words that are exactly the same, except for these three sounds, and the meaning changes, then they're minimal pairs, and those are distinct contrasting sounds. But if you can't find any of those, then based on this limited tiny number of vocabulary words from this language, we can say, okay, they're not phonemes, they're allophones. And then we can start to describe where they look. So we're going to look at another example. So this is I just Googled, and here is something on Chegg. It's not from our class. It's just, you can see that using the Maasai language for linguistics is pretty common. So if we were looking in here, they're asking us to look at the G and the G. What we can do is we can look at what that sound is. And so what I've done is I used the International Phonetic Association.org, this link, which you saw last week, and I made these words. So I clicked on transcription and I just clicked on those phonetic representations, the symbols, and put them into the transcription. And then I can copy this and I can put it into the IPA reader and I can listen to them. So listen and see if you can hear a difference.
Angle, angle.
It's a very, very slight difference, right?
Angle, angle.
Okay, but what we know from our reading is that if we have a minimal pair where everything is the exact same except for the one symbol and the words are different, then we have a minimal pair and they're different phonemes. So we know that they're contrastive, okay? And so from there, that's all you would say. That's how you would answer the question if it's a minimal pair, if it's a phoneme or an allophone. If they're contrastive, then it's a phoneme. If they're not, if you can't find a minimal pair, so let's say we were looking at the T and the D, so the T and the D. If we look here, we don't have a minimal pair where there's a T and a D, and the words are exactly the same otherwise. So that would tell us in this small example that they're complementary and it's not a minimal pair. And then what we'd want to do is we would want to, so if we go back to the textbook, walks you through all of these things. So you look at the first is to find the minimal pairs. In the case in the textbook, there is not a minimal pair. So then you're describing the environment of the allophone. And so we're looking at basically how it appears in the word. So for here, if we were looking at the T, we could say we would have the L and then an underline and then the A sound. Hopefully that makes sense. And then if you looked at the D, you'd have the N and then an underline and then the O. So you're just kind of writing out what those things look like. So if we look in the book, this is what it looks like. So the example that they're giving is for these different phonetic sounds. And so they're looking at, we would go back up in the word and you just put whatever the symbol is that comes right before the sound, and then an underline, and then the symbol that comes after, okay? So that's if you don't find a minimal pair. So we're going to go back to the exercise. If there's a minimal pair, then you just say, these are the minimal pairs. So they're contrastive, so they're phonemes. If there's not, then you're going to do a chart just like in your textbook. So you would have, let's say that these are not minimal pairs, even though I kind of just showed you where they are. You would do a chart and you would say every time you have the one sound, so here's this one, you'd have like I underline I, okay? And I know I'm saying the letters in English, they're really the phonetic sounds, but hopefully it's clear to you guys what we're trying to do. So that's part 2, okay? So that's right here, describe the environment, is where you do the chart with all of the sounds and every example where those are found. So that's going back to your textbook. That is this part right here, okay? So number 3 is extra credit, okay? So if you try to write the rule, then you'll get some extra credit on this exercise, okay? So if we go back to here, you can see the rule. So in this instance, this sound only ever appears between 2 vowels. That's the rule, okay? And so you would come down here and you can see how that plays out, okay? And so there are some examples down here, but so that's a little bit extra. It's an extra step. So this is the description. So you write out all the things and then you try to figure out, okay, what's going on here? This sound only ever appears between this sound and a vowel. This sound kind of appears pretty much anywhere. And so this is kind of, here's the generalizations. This sound only ever occurs in between two vowels. This sound only ever occurs after a nasal N. It doesn't occur in any other situation. And the cuss sound occurs everywhere else. So this is just some generalizations based on you just kind of looking at these patterns and seeing what are the patterns that I see, okay? But if you try to do this part, write the rule, and again, it doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong, you try to write the rule, try to figure it out, then you get some extra credit for this exercise. So there's also a video here where they will go through how to do this with some other words. And so if you're still confused after all of this, then go back to here and try that. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about for this week is the final project. Okay, so I kind of mentioned it the last couple videos, but this week you are really starting to think about what you're going to do and you're going to submit your proposal. So this week you're actually choosing what American English dialect. So American English dialect, that's what we're looking at. So you're going to choose an American English dialect that you want to write about, and you're going to submit a proposal. The proposal only has to be about a page, and it needs to include all the things that are listed here in the weekly assignment page. Okay, so what dialect are you examining? What communication sample are you going to work with? So remember, you have to have a video or an audio recording, so you need to include that in your proposal. So you can put a link to the video and describe it, or a link to the audio recording and describe, tell me where it's from, how you know that that's actually a sample of that dialect. Then I want to know just kind of why you picked it. What's intriguing you about the dialect? What do you already know about the dialect? And what do you want to find out? So think about three to five questions about the dialect. And they can be simple questions, you guys. It could be things like, where did this dialect come from? Does it include any other languages? So think about the things that you've learned about dialects, the things that you've learned about languages so far, and you can incorporate those questions. It doesn't have to be anything really in-depth or complex. It can be just real simple questions about things that you want to learn about the dialect, okay? And you will notice right now, there's a TBA for a sample project proposal. So I'm going to work on getting a sample proposal for you so that you have an example of what you want to look for. But hopefully that will be coming soon later this week, and I will let you know when I've got it posted. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hopefully this little video helps you guys. It was a little bit long this week, but hopefully it was worth it for you. Have a great week. Remember, let me know if you have any questions.